You are. Hello, councillors. Please can I welcome everyone to this meeting of the Licensing Subcommittee taking place on the Walton Suite, Winchester Guildhall. The time is 10 AM. My name is Councillor Johnny Morris, one of the committee members of this particular Licensing Subcommittee. The meeting, with the exception of determining the decision, is being live streamed and recorded to the Council's YouTube channel. Please can everyone ensure mobile phones on silent or switched off entirely. In the unlikely event that it is necessary to evacuate the building for an emergency situation, the fire alarm will sound. Please follow all the instructions given to you by our team. Now moving on to the agenda. To confirm a chairperson for the meeting, you happy for me to do it?
Yeah.
Thank you. Disclosure of interests. Do members or officers have any interests they wish to declare?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I just have to declare that I have a disclosable pecuniary interest in respect of the site we're talking about, as I'm a member of the South Downs National Park Authority, but there's no material conflict of interest regarding this issue, and I have a dispensation granted by the monitoring officer that enables me to speak and vote on the matter.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. And moving on to application for new premises license, Longdown Vineyard, Longdown House, Portley Lane, Twyford, Winchester, Hampshire, SO21 1QX, report number LR609. Welcome to this meeting of the Licensing Subcommittee. The hearing regulations require that the hearing should take the form of a discussion led by the subcommittee and that cross-examination will not normally be allowed. We will be following the adopted procedure for these hearings, which is set out on the reverse of the agenda paper. Each party will be allowed equal maximum time to exercise their rights at the hearing. I will exercise my discretion to allow additional time if necessary, taking into account the requirement to allow all parties equal maximum time. Only those points contained in the written representations, the report and supplementary documents can be raised. No new evidence can be considered except with the agreement of all parties. Applicants here. Excellent. And I've introduced most of the council morning. We have Councillor Lamming and Councillor Pett also on the subcommittee. And could everyone, let's say officers and then representatives, please introduce themselves. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Laura James. I'm licensing and litigation solicitor for Winchester City Council.
Good morning. My name's Claire Humphreys. I'm licensing officer for Winchester City Council.
Morning, Carol Stefanchuk, licensing manager for the City Council.
Morning, Mark Papworth, applicant for the license, premises license.
Hi, Louise Papworth, the other applicant for the licence, and with co-owners of Longdown Vineyard.
Morning, I'm David Blakemore from Democratic Services, taking some minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. The subcommittee has read all the written comments on the application, which are included in the report. I don't. Are there any persons that wishes to address the subcommittee? Unfortunately, there is. Oh, thank you. So I understand that Dominic Gaunt wishes to address the committee and representative of Twyford Parish Council, Sue Cook. Thank you. Okay, we can only consider issues relating to the 4 licensing objectives, which is prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, prevention of public nuisance, and protection of children. The subcommittee will also have regard to the national guidance and the council's licensing policy. Now it's for the licensing manager to introduce the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This report relates to an application for a new premises licence submitted by Longdown Vineyard LLP under Section 17 of the Licensing Act 2003 for the premises known as Longdown Vineyard. The premises has been described in the application as 2 standalone warehouses, one yet to be built, shown bounded in red on the plan, set within the same curtilages of Longdown House, with an appended consumption area bounded in blue on the plan. The premises shall operate primarily as a location for the sale of wine to be consumed off the premises and for the packing, dispatch and collection of wine. Vineyard tours and tastings will be operated in accordance with the provisions set out in the application on page 24 of the pack. The applicant seeks to provide the supply of alcohol for consumption on and off the premises, Monday to Sunday, 0900 hours to 2200 hours. The full application can be seen at Appendix 1 to the report, starting on page 21. 3 representations were received from other persons. All 3 are against the application and relate to 2 of the licensing objectives: public safety and the prevention of public nuisance. The representations are set out as Appendix 2 to this report. Some representations against the application relate to how the grant of the premises licence could increase traffic on narrow country roads and put public safety at risk. The subcommittee must consider if the grant of the licence would undermine any of the licensing objectives. Longdown Vineyard and its surrounding land is within the South Downs National Park. The South Downs National Park Authority, as a planning authority, were consulted on the application but didn't submit a formal representation. If the subcommittee were minded to grant this licence, there are possible conditions offered by the applicant as set out in the operating schedule and set out in section 5 of the report to consider. The subcommittee can reword these as they feel appropriate in order to promote the licensing objectives. Members are reminded that any conditions imposed on a premises licence must be appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives and within the control of the licence holder. Twyford Parish Council and Mr Dominic Gaunt both submitted representation against the application. Mr Gaunt and the representative for Twyford Parish Council, Councillor Sue Cook, are present at the hearing today and do wish to address the subcommittee. Members are reminded that individuals may only refer to comments that they made in their written representation. Thank you.
Thank you. Members of the committee can now ask questions of the licensing manager. Any questions? I'll go first because if you sneeze, you lose. Normally with this sort of, when there's issues regarding the use of a road and road safety, Hampshire Highways will be asked to comment on it. Have they been given the opportunity to comment on this and we should, and they have decided not to do so, is that correct?
Ordinarily, traffic is not something that's covered as a responsible authority. So Hampshire Highways would be consulted as part of the safety advisory group for larger events, but they're not a responsible authority as standard and as statutorily required under the Licensing Act. So no, for this application, they would not have been contacted.
So is there another statutory authority that is responsible for road safety in this instance?
Probably the closest responsible authority I would say is the police from a public safety perspective.
So they've been given the opportunity to say a comment and have chosen not to do so.
So the police are a statutory responsible authority. Sorry, have got teeth. Excuse me. The police, I think, would be the closest relevant authority to respond to public safety, but haven't for this application.
Thank you. Councillor Pett.
Thank you, Chair. I noticed in the application, it's solely for on and off sales. And the section on live music and recorded music hasn't been requested at all.
No, there's obviously there was no requirement on the application. They didn't obviously ask for recorded music or live music. However, you have to take into consideration the Live Music Act, because that would override any hours, etc., on the application had they put any on. So between the hours of 8 and 2300 hours, if there are on sales alcohol, they are permitted, and the audience is less than 500, they are permitted to have recorded and live music.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Lemmy?
So it's only, just to clarify that one stage further, it's only allowed within the period of time that the licence is operating. So if it finished at 9 o'clock in the evening, for example, live music couldn't extend past 10. Is that the way I take it?
Yes, that's correct. Yes, sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to clarify again for my own, so if this license were given, they would be able to hold events of during daylight hours, you described, of up to 500 people without requesting any additional licensing or an event license. This is all covered within this application, is that correct?
That's correct. So the Live Music Act applies when a premises is open for the licensed activities. So if the license is granted from 0900 until 2200, they're open supplying alcohol for consumption on the premises, and that's really clear, is that it's for consumption on the premises. That's when the Live Music Act is available for them to use. So they wouldn't be able to use it between 0800 and 0900 because their premises wouldn't be licensed and open for on sales. So between the 0900 to 2200, if a license was granted and the license was open trading for on sales, then they could use the provisions of the Live Music Act. But of course could apply for a temporary event notice should they wish to extend it.
And is that something that we can condition as not being applicable in this case, that the terms of the Live Music Act, we can condition saying you will not have events with loud music? Is that something we can condition?
No. The only way you can take away the Live Music Act provisions is under a review. It's a default provision under the as part of the Licensing Act. So every licensed premises that meets the restrictions have the ability to be able to use that deregulation. The only way you can take it away is if the license were to be reviewed.
Thank you. Questions? Any more? Okay, thank you. We now thank you for your responses. The applicant stroke premises holder may now address the subcommittee. So it's Mark and Louise Hepworth. Thank you.
Right, so I'm not going to go through the paper that I prepared because obviously you've read that, but you've already highlighted two concerns which I think have been major to our neighbours, and one is the road, which is called Whatley Lane. So Whatley Lane, I don't know whether any of you have been there. Do you know the road? So we're about 120 metres up this road, and that road itself is probably a kilometre. So we're not talking about a large distance here. And during that 120 metres, there are two passing spaces. The road is used by multiple people who have horses up at livery at the yard at the top of the lane without any problems, with significant horse boxes, tractors, deliveries, and until fairly recently, I don't know when they stopped, Sue probably knows, but Panda Car was based up there, which was a commercial fencing company. And you know, the reality of that road is that it is fine. It's a narrow road, it's got its potholes, so you drive slowly, but having lived there for that period of time, it's yeah, I really can't see that the small level of increase of traffic that we will bring to that will cause any safety problems. And to address that concern, we've identified our road management plan. So in the event that we have any events on the premises, that will ensure that there's somebody who is responsible for exiting and entering the yard, There is a Facebook group that belongs to the livery stables that we're in constant communication with when we've been building the barn, to ensure that they know that cement lorries are arriving or that steel's arriving, so that there is already a collaboration to ensure there are no problems on the road. The fire engine service recently attended a fire up there. Significant number of engines, no problem, which is why I guess there's been no comments from those people. With regard to live music, I realise how concerning it is. I mean, we live the closest of any properties to the vineyard, and the last thing we want is loud music late at night. We don't intend to have loud music. We don't intend to be a boom town or anything of that nature. But on the other hand, we don't want to constrain ourselves by saying that we're never going to have some form of musical background for some casual tasting experience in the afternoon. I don't know what we're going to do. We're a startup business. We need flexibility to decide how we do that. But I realise that's a very difficult matter to deal with. I think the suggestion the licensing officers made in terms of numbers, restriction on numbers, is a good one. And the hours are the hours that we've put in. Everything will stop at 10 any night of the week. I sincerely hope that the plan we've put in place, the noise management plan, will be enough to allay the concerns of our neighbours. So that's probably all I want to address at this point.
Thank you. Mark, did you want to address?
The only thing I would say is you know, I have done. I'm an engineer by training, so I kind of get to data and detail, and I have done some analysis using the South attenuation inverse square rule, and the distance to our nearest neighbour is 200 metres. The distance to our next nearest neighbour is 250 metres. There's a drop in elevation of 30 metres, and there is, in respect to the first house, 75 metres of trees, and in respect to the second house, 100 metres of trees. So if we were if I was to shout into somebody's ear at 110 decibels, that would be less than 34 decibels at the first house and 22 decibels at the second house. And to put that in context, a refrigerator hums at 50 decibels.
Thank you. Members of the committee can ask questions. I have loads of questions, but okay. Firstly, regarding the noise levels, certainly with Boomtown, it's been an issue that where people who live in an extremely quiet area can be more sensitive to noise. Would that be correctly characterising the area you live in?
As I put in the paper, it's a lovely area. You can hear the birds, but you can also hear the M3. We're less than a mile from the entrance to the M3. We're right under the flight path into Southampton Airport. So there are, I don't know what, 20-ish, 30 planes a day. So it's rural, but it's not rural in the sense of there's nothing happening and there's no noises. There is a constant background noise. We're opposite a school, Twyford School. They have a lot of sporting events. And you can hear those clearly from the houses because it goes up the hill and there aren't the tree barriers that there are for our neighbours with us. So it's lovely, but it's got noise. Yeah, it's got noise.
Okay. Regarding your plan to have visitors arriving by car and so forth, what is actually the capacity of this venue in terms of how many cars you could actually have parked at the place?
We haven't arranged any, we haven't made a car park as such. We expect to be able to park on the ground that we have. It's chalk, so it's well drained. My daughter's wedding last year, we probably had 30 cars. So I would think no more than that, absolute max. Our intention isn't to have more than, I don't know, in terms of groups of people, 30 at a time, maybe. So again, 15 cars, given that most people come in twos. So we don't have significant parking. We won't be expecting to park on the lane in any way at all. That would be absolutely out of the question. And we will limit our events to the amount of parking we have.
And when you say that they'll be limiting it to tours, I think of about, you said tours of about 20 persons. How many tours will you have at once?
One
Only one.
One at a time? So,
at a time,
okay.
probably one a day, if that. But yes, one at a time, one a day. You have to, I think, because we have such fantastically large vineyards around us, we think of the Grange and we think of Reims or Reims, and we think of those ones. This is tiny as a venue. It's 2 hectares in total. The actual space that we have, which isn't dedicated to vines, and the barn is an area 50 by 50 meters squared. I mean, this is a small venue with small aspirations around people visiting, be more educational than social. So.
Okay, you say that bookings from visitors arriving or being collected by large public service vehicles will not be accepted. So is this effectively ruling out bus tours, and it's ruling out buses using your lane?
Yeah, if you, I've never thought about it, but if that was a condition, that would be fine. We might have a mini bus because we have 2 vineyards, and we have a vineyard in Twyford and vineyard in Bishop's Waltham. I could imagine when we're up and running that we might have a mini bus that we take people from one vineyard to the other, but it would be limited by the amount of a minibus that we could drive.
One of the associations we have is with an organisation called Think 18, which is a charity that looks to provide activities for mentally disabled adults over 18. Now, they will visit the vineyard 2 or 3 times a year. They'll come when we're pruning, they'll come when we're picking, and they will arrive in a minibus. I think that's the only way that group could get there.
But please bear in mind, again, this lane is 120 metres with parking, with passing spaces, and that lane is used by, oh, I don't know, 10 horse boxes every Saturday and Sunday. You know, please don't over respond to this lane business. It is not a problem for a minibus. A coach, absolutely not.
And you mentioned the passing places on the lane. How many passing places are there along the lane in terms of?
Did a map for you. You can see on this page 17, 60. It shows there. So you turn into the lane. There's a parking space on the left-hand side, which is where some water use, and so the well put it out by horses, the car going by, which is that very good distance. 20 metres up the lane, and then a bit further up, about 70 metres up the lane on the right-hand side, put in by the bricks dispensers, brick dispenser salt on the road. Then on the left-hand side, there's a put-in which is used by Forest School, which is next to the one-way footpath, and that provides parking for 8 cars at drop-off, something like that. So this is not tiny. It's very well served in terms of being able to pass each other. In the R gateway, then I have another parking space or parts of the trade. Vineyard gateway allows another parcel space.
Thank you. I'll keep on asking questions unless on page 35, you have the supply of alcohol times as being from 9 o'clock in the morning till 10 at night. But over the page, you have the opening hours for the venue as being from 11 to 8. Can you describe that discrepancy?
No, I understand it. When I filled the form in, I found it very complicated. And you'll correct me if I'm wrong how I explain this, Claire. My understanding is in order for us to dispatch wine to people who have bought online, you have to be licensed. So for me to say you ordered online and you ordered a wine, and I was doing it at night because I'm doing it in front of the telly and I'm wrapping up, and I book my dispatch, then that is all part of needing licensing hours. So you have to have very long licensing hours just to do the physical side of the business. Doesn't necessarily mean that you will be having people in. Hours open to the public is where we would imagine people coming to the premises. Are you with me?
Yes.
So I mean, it's the archaic nature, I guess, of the application system. Have I explained that right?
If you're wanting to pack, dispatch online orders, you would have to be licensed. So although the opening hours at 11 o'clock, that could be to the public or people visiting to buy wine or to come for tastings, between 9 and 11 they could be packing wine and posting it out, or that sort of thing.
Thank you.
Does that make
Yeah, Chairman, if it helps, what you can do is explicitly write on the licence that if the application is granted as the hours that's been offered, you could make it clear in a condition that the hours for alcohol for people to attend the premises, I believe, are between 11 and 2200. So that, to actually write a condition so that it explains exactly what's been set here, because I appreciate for all parties it's very difficult when you're looking at a standard form, a standard notice. It's the what could happen, oh this could mean this could happen all during these times, but in reality, and this is where this committee helps, is to actually explain what their purpose is. So if the hours are longer because of the appropriation to the sale, which is what needs to be licensed also, then you can then specify a separate condition that explains about when people can actually attend the premises for opening hours.
Thank you. I also note this in terms of the capacity for the venue. The original application had it down as 200, but your revised note had it down to a maximum of 100 people. So which of these should we be understanding to be the application to be?
I'm happy with 100.
And when visitors come, they'll have the opportunity of tasting the various wines you have on offer. If people are driving, there'll be other people there who can't drink alcohol. So will you be serving non-alcoholic drinks as well?
Well, first of all, we won't always be serving alcohol, just to make it clear. So like the Think 18 thing, that won't be an alcoholic occasion. When Forest School with their preschoolers come to see the site for educational purposes, that won't be alcohol. There'll be multiple occasions where people come to the vineyard where there isn't alcohol being served. Clearly, on all those occasions and occasions when somebody comes with somebody who's drinking, there will be soft drinks, water, and it's actually a requirement that we have water available anyway for our site. So absolutely, I don't know what they'll be, but there will be alternatives to alcohol. For the Think 18 lot, we're going to use non-secco, which apparently is drinkable. It's non-alcoholic Prosecco.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Pett.
Sorry, just to get some clarification on that. I noticed in the application there's the figure of 200 people, but I think that's total number of people on site, isn't it? Including yourselves, including employees and whatever. I haven't found within the application whether there's a limit on visitors to the site. Should we be clear?
499, isn't it? If we have more than, my understanding is we have 499, we have to apply for a 10. Yeah, that's correct.
So
if you applied for a 10, it would be 499, but obviously this is this is a
so the application itself actually limits the number of people on site to 200 total. Yeah.
Sorry, Chair, if I could just clarify, I think page 71, there's additions. I think we were talking about the 100. There's a proposed as an offer, says on number 3, on-site events with no alcohol to a maximum of 100 off sales only, and a maximum of 50 where on-site is provided. Is that, can I ask the applicant if that's correct?
Yeah. I mean, we'd like some flexibility because we're a startup business. We don't know how it's going to go, but I know we can always come back to you if that doesn't satisfy the requirements at a later point. But it shows the level of intention that we have, which is not to be the Grange.
You mentioned that a wedding took place there last year.
Mm-hmm.
Is the venue going to be available for outside bookings for things like weddings and parties?
No, it was our daughter's wedding, and so a special event. And the reason for mentioning that was because that was where we tested, so to speak, not on purpose, just because we tested it. We had a big event, we had a big band, we had 100 people, and nobody, it appears, heard anything. So I just put that in there because it's really back up to the fact that we don't think our events are going to cause a problem from noise. We've not applied for a wedding license. We don't have any intention to apply for a wedding license.
So the only way people will be visiting the venue will be as part of a wine tour with or without drinking.
Lots of ways to visit vineyards. I mean, you know, you can come and watch the sunset with a glass of wine. You can come and have an educational discussion about how on earth can you grow vines on thick chalk. How do you have a sustainable vineyard in the UK? You know, it's not all about tours and wines. I know that's what traditionally other vineyards do, and we certainly will have tours, but we're not big enough to be interesting from that point of view. We need to be diverse in the offering that we create.
What I'm just trying to clarify is whether you'll be taking bookings from outside events. If someone wanted to have a meeting of the Winchester Rotary there, would you be opening something like that?
Don't know, haven't thought about it. Don't know.
Certainly what we have at the moment is an area where somebody could sit, enjoy the view, have a glass of wine. We don't have facilities for meetings. We don't have audio visual equipment or anything like that. So I can't imagine why the Rotary Club would want to sit in our field
On a hay bale.
Thank you. Any other questions?
No, I feel I should be, the barn that we have is for agricultural purposes only. It is for storing tractors, it's for having winemaking equipment. It has one door, which is for receiving goods, and that is also where we will dispense cellar door sales when it's finished and up and running. But there's no provision in there, there's no kitchen, there's no provision for any catering of any description. So I think the appetite of third parties to use us is going to be fairly low. At this point in time, anyway.
Thank you. Councillor Lamy.
Thank you, Chair. This is a relatively new vineyard. How many bottles of wine do you anticipate making in the future per year?
It varies a lot. I mean, the Twyford vineyard, which is the premises we're talking about, won't produce grapes that we can harvest for 3 years. So the first year that we'll have wine that's made there will be, so that takes 2029. And that, I mean, in terms of the vineyard in Bishop's Waltham, we're looking at around 4,000 bottles a year.
So do you sell from there as well?
It doesn't belong to us. We're long-term tenants of that vineyard. So no, we don't.
Thank you.
Yeah, might I ask a couple of questions, please? The first one relates to lighting, because we've got the South Downs National Park policies on dark night skies. So if these events are to take place at dusk or evening, what type of provision for lighting? You've got quite a large area that's described as a picnic and tent area. Access to that and obviously safety for patrons leaving the buildings. If you could just tell us a little bit about that, that would be helpful. Thank you.
So you have to bear in mind these grapes were planted 6 weeks ago. The barn is not quite finished yet. This is a brand new business, so we don't have any lighting put up at this point in time. This is a piece of work that we've just started investigating. We have the South Downs National Park actually coming around later today. A guy called Chris Lickley, is that right? Yes, Chris Lickley, who's going to talk to us about how can we best fit in with the night skies and ensure that our lighting isn't in any way interrupting or spoiling any of that. And equally the security, obviously security is important to us. So so we're still in the process of evolving that, but we're very focused on making sure that it doesn't spoil the atmosphere we're trying to create or the atmosphere in which we and our neighbours live in. So I don't know the answer to the question, but I know there are answers. I just don't know them.
And can I ask you about toilet provisions as well? You've got the picnic tent, which I presume you'll need permission for. It's for longer than 28 days. So I don't know. It's a big, you know, it's a picnic.
Well, we don't have one at the moment.
We don't have that either.
It might be a gazebo that gets popped up and
Right,
popped down.
okay,
So it's a ambition, shall we say?
Right. Okay. So there's nothing there.
No.
So there's no facilities for paper.
Well, there will be a toilet. There will be a toilet in the barn. So drainage has been put in. There's no toilet there at present. So we won't be able to have anything meaningful until we have got that. But no, at the moment, there's a plan to have one toilet. Is it two? Two. One toilet in the barn.
Thank you. Could you possibly indicate on the plan where the parking? So if I look at this, the area.
Yeah, I think the back.
You've got the big pink barn and track.
Okay, so
sorry, 77.
Yeah, as you're looking at the plan, so parking will be adjacent to the entry gate off Watley Lane. So it'll be the opposite end to where the red barn is.
Oh, sorry, on the map you've got the pink line, which is the track.
So parking will be near to the black or the blue box that you can see. Yeah.
The south, that square to the south at the end of that track that goes on to Watley Lane. Yeah,
That's right. Yeah.
so that's where the parking will be.
So the furthest possible point from any other residence.
Right.
Because the residents are, as you can see,
Along
quite a long way away.
Watley Lane.
So
And is it possible for the public to use their GPS, sat nav, etc., or other Google Maps, to come along Park Lane and then along the top lane, Love Lane, that way they could come up Park Lane?
sat nav doesn't take you that way, and both ends of the Love Lane, it's Love Lane, I think you're referring to, both ends of Love Lane, as the photograph at page, I don't know, 77 show that it's a restricted byway and no vehicular access except for access. So no, I think is the answer.
That's helpful, thank you.
Hey, Councillor Pett. Sorry, just going back to the lighting. I'm just slightly confused there because lighting is going to be presumably a planning issue here rather than a licensing issue. I suppose licensing to the extent that it may cause nuisance. However, given that the planning authority will impose restrictions in accordance with their dark night sky policies and so on, I think it highly unlikely that any lighting would come into the nuisance category because of that. But mainstream, is it not a planning issue rather than licensing?
And it does come into the licensing policy. I'm trying to think what page it's on. In that, I mean, there are overlaps between planning and licensing. In the licensing guidance, perhaps Carrie can help me out here. I think it's sorry, I think it's paragraph 1.5 of the statement of licensing policy to 1.8, which states that the licensing authority will follow the South Downs National Park purposes. 1.7 says the licensing objectives collectively seek to protect the quality of life for those who live and work in the vicinity, and those who choose to socialise in the licensing authority will seek to further the purposes when considering applications to ensure they are respected. So there is a technical note for the South Downs National Park Authority that it does actually apply to the public as well. It's not just so obviously quality of life, nuisance would actually engage in terms of the policy, and I think that has come up in previous applications before this committee in terms of dark night skies and having lighting that doesn't go upwards. But you are correct in saying that there is that overlap with planning, but it might not necessarily cover the areas that we're dealing with, such as around the picnic tent. I'm saying that I'm saying that it might be different considerations for licensing, for access. I don't know if Carol's got any comments for that, but for lighting in terms.
I think the main thing is that having the visit by the South Downs National Park, you've already engaged with them, which is obviously positive. I think what will be useful is that the park will be considering it as a park, and they might not necessarily consider it under the licensing regime. That would be separate. I think the main things for you is to remember to refer to things or mention to them that given the decision today or in the future, it's things like having a well-lit walkway or provision if someone's using the toilet and it's dark. That's the sort of areas that will need to be well lit or sufficiently lit, I think is the way to phrase it. So it's more as part of that discussion. I think it's then useful to speak to them about not just about the fact that it's in the park, but as a licensing regime, you also need to consider public safety for lighting, people moving around during those hours.
I suppose what I'm getting at is that, as you say, you're talking with the park this afternoon or whenever. The likelihood is that the park will, I'm sure, make clear to you that any lighting that is needed for access to public loos or anything like that, it's quite possible to do that with downlights and all the rest of it. And I don't think any of what you're likely to do is going to come near the threshold of public nuisance, because the park will have ensured that you are employing those techniques that avoid a problem with the dark night sky policy.
If I can sort of follow up on what Councillor Pedder said, my understanding is the licensing, I don't know if it's objective, but it's something we should bear in mind, which is the South Downs National Park. Purpose 1 is to conserve and enhance the natural beauty, wildlife and cultural heritage of the area. And I think disruptive lighting could be seen as not being in line with that objective. And so I want to ask whether this is something we can condition in addition to this onto the license.
If it's appropriate to the license in the area, then that's something that you can condition. What I would say is there are various premises that are within the South Downs National Park that have a license, and Boomtown was mentioned earlier, that's in the South Downs National Park. They work very close to them, but we also have long permanent premises, other pubs that are in the South Downs National Park. I think the main point is that they're engaging with them, and as Councillor Pett referred to, is as long as they're in keeping with the dark night skies and their policies, then it's highly unlikely to then affect their license. Festival lighting, I guess, is the best way to describe it, where you have the sort of on a string, more permanent than perhaps you'd have in your garden, but string type lighting often is efficient enough for people to be able to see on the site, but in terms of wider than that, and that's the consideration for them to discuss with the South Downs. But I would expect it to be highly unlikely that anything that South Downs agree would affect their licence.
Thank you, Councillor Levy.
If granted, I must add.
If granted, yes, Councillor Levy.
Thank you. With the sale of wine, you're looking at selling the wine from this particular vineyard. Are you looking at selling it from your other vineyard as well at this point?
Yeah, we're one business with 2 sites.
So how many bottles do you produce at from the other vineyard?
So it depends on the year, and this is the first year that we're doing it. So It will grow up to around 20 to 30,000 bottles a year over the course of the next 7 years. So please bear in mind the timescale we're talking about. So when I say 4,000, that's
Yeah.
what we're looking at this year. But over time, it will grow, we hope, as the wine's produced and as the fizzy wine's made. So yes, that's the sort of number over the longer term.
So you're only looking at selling your own wine?
I don't understand what you mean by, do you mean our own, we only will sell wine that belongs to us?
Yeah.
That
one
we have
that
made
you
from one
produce
or
on
the other
everybody.
vineyards. Yeah, we're not to sell anybody else's wine.
Okay.
We will sell soft drinks and other things maybe, but not anybody else's wine.
Okay. Okay.
So, right.
Any other further questions? Okay, then she'll move on to responsible authorities. I think the various list of 6 to 14 here have not made submissions, so move on to any other person. And if Mr. Gaunt would like to go first, thank you.
Good morning, Chair and members. My name is Dominic Gaunt of Highcroft and Love Lane in Twyford. I'm one of 3 representations myself. I represent my family as well, a family of 5. Our neighbours, the Fanshaws, have also made a representation. I'm not sure that was mentioned at the start. I can't speak on their behalf, but I know that they have similar concerns. So we're objecting to the application on the grounds of prevention of public nuisance and public safety. Our main concern is not with the vineyard itself. In fact, we're really supportive of that. I think it's a wonderful thing that we've got a winery on our doorstep, and I very much look forward to sampling the wine in due course. Our issue is not even with the sale of the wine, but rather the proposed opening hours for up to 10 o'clock, and the indication that the hours may increase during English Wine Week, which is fairly ambiguous. I think it's been a theme of the application. There are some it's ambiguity around a number of things. Our home and garden are very close to the site. Contrary to the statement about 200 metres, we are 85 metres from the building to the boundary, and Whistler's, our neighbours, are 41 metres. I'm an architect, I've measured it on plan, I'm confident in those numbers. In this setting, I'm concerned that this will lead to noise, disturbance and traffic impact. So if I start with public nuisance, it's a quiet rural location. It's a really, really quiet valley. Yes, there's the occasional plane overhead, but the fact that we could hear the voices of the construction workers building the building, and the fact that we could hear or feel the ground vibrate when the diggers were in action putting their groundworks in, would indicate to me that the voices, people drinking and socialising late into the evening, and in my experience, if you've had a glass of wine or two, voices get louder, so raised voices, laughter and shouting, and noise carrying from the proposed event area. The cellar door arrangement means that drinking and socialising is outside by default, and obviously in that quiet valley, noise is going to travel, so that does increase the risk of ongoing disturbance. So in terms of the evening disturbance, which is our biggest concern, people are trying to, it's when we're trying to rest in the garden, our neighbours are enjoying the home and garden, and general background noise is much lower than during the daytime. So closing time of 10 o'clock, in my view, is far too late for this type of premises, and also potentially even later during the English Wine Week as well, which creates uncertainty. I'm also slightly just on the ambiguity. I thought we were talking about 1 barn, and I've learnt this morning it's 2 barns, so I'm not quite sure what that is about, but it would be good to understand a bit more from the applicant in due course. Noise from arrivals and departures. So, customers arriving and leaving, car door slamming, engine starting. I appreciate that it's at the other end. Thank you. That's great. But it is a quiet rural location, and we will be aware of it. Whatley Lane is narrow, and I think there are issues there. There are passing places, but they're at either end of a long straight section. But my biggest issue is Love Lane, which is where we live, which runs perpendicular to Whatley Lane. We get every single delivery driver without fail is sent down from Whatley Lane end rather than from the village, which is at the other end. It is a bridleway, and it does cause us issues. So that route is the main route to the village. So you're going to get cars going up there, but also pedestrians. And if you've had a glass or two of wine, you're going in, if you've got the villagers going up for a drink in the evening, they're going past our bedroom window, which is literally on the boundary. As when people, horse riders or anyone walks up that lane, we can hear their voices. You know, if I'm lying in bed, I will hear exactly what the conversation is. So inevitably, if you've had a few glasses of wine, you're walking back to the village, it's going to be loud. So for those reasons, we're objecting on the basis of public nuisance and public safety. If I don't know whether this is possible in terms of conditions and so on, but if the committee is minded to permit this, then I'd ask that the alcohol consumption is limited to 6 p.m. And likewise with the sort of opening hours, no live music, and then just some understanding around what it means around the extension to English Wine Week. Thank you.
Thank you. Do councillors have any questions? Mr. Gaunt. Okay, just one question. You're aware that the applicant has now withdrawn the request for different hours during English Wine Week?
Oh, no, I wasn't. That's great. Thank you.
Okay. I think that's everything. So if Councillor Cook would like to address the committee. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair, fellow councillors and officers and members of the general public, the applicants and the press. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm actually speaking on behalf of Twyford Parish Council, as you've all heard. Twyford Parish Council supports the establishment of new local businesses. However, the council wishes to object to the premises licence application in its current form for the new vineyard operation involving public use of a large field, approximately 2 hectares, I believe, including areas for picnics and tents, events with up to 200 attendees, although we've heard today could be 499, together and on-off sales of alcohol 7 days a week till 10 o'clock in the evening. The council's objection is made on the grounds that the proposed activities in this rural location are accessed via a very narrow road, which we have discussed earlier today, are likely to undermine the licensing objectives, in particular public safety and the prevention of public nuisance. The principal concerns on which the council's objection is based are as follows. Unsuitable access route, very narrow road, let's call it. The only access to the field is via approximately a 300 metre of narrow single lane with limited passing spaces, which we have heard of today, restricted visibility in places, and no continuous footway or lighting whatsoever. Additional vehicle movements associated with the licensed premises and events, including customers, staff, deliveries, taxis and waste collections, would materially increase the risk of conflict between vehicles, horse boxes, and pedestrians, and could be difficult to manage safely. Emergency vehicle access and egress. In the event of an accident or an incident, the narrow road which hinder the safe and timely access of emergency services and could prevent vehicles from passing if congestion were to occur. Traffic congestion, obstruction and road safety. I appreciate that Hampshire Highways have not been, have not made a comment, but still it's something that needs to be raised. A licensed premises in a field is likely to generate a peak time arrival and departures with limited space for vehicles to pass. Drivers may be forced to reverse long distances, mount verges, perhaps, or stop in unsafe locations. There is therefore a risk of obstruction at pinch points and junctions, creating hazards for other road users. Parking and overspill parking. We've heard today that there is the availability of a parking area for X amount of cars. Unless robust on-site parking and active management are in place, vehicles may park on verges or within the highway, and increasing risk to pedestrians, again, cyclists and horse riders. Overspill parking could also impede access for residents, farm traffic, as it is used, and emergency services. Noise and disturbance in rural setting. Licensed activities, including music, amplified speech or music, people congregating outdoors, vehicle doors and taxis, as we've heard, opening and closing, are likely to carry significantly into the open countryside. Noise does travel. I live in Twyford myself, and if the wind's blowing in the wrong way when Boomtown's on, I hear it. Depends on what the beat is, especially in this large field in a prominent high location. Daily alcohol sales and dispersal are up to 2,200 hours on and off a 7-day week licence, likely to result in regular evening disturbances for customers leaving the site and travelling along the narrow access road, and for the residents. Litter, my favourite. Waste and antisocial behaviour. Alcohol-led activity can lead to increased littering. I know that from Twyford Locks. And antisocial behaviour, particularly along the access route where people may be walking to and from vehicles or drop-off points. The council respectively requests that the licensing authority refuse the application in its current form. The council have asked that a range of mitigations to be considered, which we've talked about today, to be also considered to address the issues raised and to ensure that the licensing objectives are upheld. These detailed suggestions are in the representation made and contained in Appendix 2 of the subcommittee's meeting and include a reduction in the size of the licensed area, reduced hours and capacity limits as well, traffic, noise and calming. So it was great to hear that we could be talking about conditioning with the licence in the form of lights. I believe that we've heard this morning that in fact you've withdrawn the different hours for the English Wine Week, which is good to hear. You've adopted a noise management plan, and I understand from what I've read, me personally, that you are looking at numbers now of 100 people off sales only with a maximum of 50. I would question, how would this be controlled? And Councillor Pett did bring up a very good point about the numbers, because obviously you have employees, and we understand that that would have something to do with it as well. But we would prefer, or the parish council would prefer, amplified music not to be played after 2,100 hours. And thank you for allowing me to speak, Chair and fellow councillors. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cook. Do my councillors have any questions? Councillor Pett.
Just by way of clarification, really, I think we've already established that the applied for hours of visitors coming for tastings and so on run up to 2,000, that the premises have to be licensed for the sale of alcohol simply to cover the packaging and distribution of stuff up to 2,200. So there certainly won't be any amplified music after 2,100 unless the applicants choose to have very loud music to help them while away the hours of packing. So are you content that there will be no amplified music after 2,100?
That, as that has been explained that way, that would be acceptable. Thank you.
I think it's 8 o'clock rather than 9 o'clock. It's
Sorry, 8. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So it certainly won't be.
If I may say, I appreciate that the residents were looking at an earlier time, but it's all dependent upon what the subcommittee decide on. Thank you.
Chairman, it might be worth clarifying again with the applicant, because on page 36 of the application, and we discussed earlier about the extended hours for the appropriation to the sale, the 2,000 hours on the application is on a Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday is 1,100 until 2,200. So perhaps the applicant could confirm if that is still the proposal. So there could be people and the licensed activity for people on the site on Thursday, Friday, Saturday and Sunday until 2200.
Thank you, councillor Pett.
So in that case, then it would be open to us to condition the playing of amplified music to a different time or not?
There is no application for regulated entertainment, so no conditions can be added to restrict.
Because it comes within the.
It's a deregulation under a separate piece of legislation. If you were in a review situation, that would be the case, but not in this application. The application is for the supply of alcohol, and so the conditions must relate to that licence of activity.
Can I ask Councillor Cook for local knowledge of Twyford? Are there any other licensed venues in this sort of area that people that would be open in these sort of hours?
The closest you have would be a drinking hostelry, which is the Bugle, which is on the High Street, which is a pub. And you also have the Phoenix, which is also on the High Street. So that would be in proximity to where we're talking about today. That's the High Street of Twyford. But could I please, am I permitted to clarify something? Because Councillor Pett obviously asked me about those hours. Is it then not possible to condition, despite what our residents are asking for 6 o'clock, 1800 hours, why does the licence have to go till 2200 hours on Thursday, Friday and Saturday when you have got families that live close by that have children? And I think acceptable on maybe on a Friday and a Saturday to have those hours, but not the Thursday. I'm trying to find a middle ground, if I may, of an 8 o'clock finish as opposed to a 10 o'clock finish, Thursdays, Fridays and Saturdays. But I'm not the committee, your good selves are. It's just a thought. Thank you.
Can I share that too? That of course we do also have the third place that's licensed, which is the little cafe, you know, the river, what's it called, the Beam Below. That also is a licensed property in Twyford, isn't it?
And there's the off licence for the Twyford stores as well.
Or if I may say, obviously I was referring to a public establishment, a pub, and they are also both the two that have just been mentioned are on the High Street, not in a proximity.
Bugle is not
to
on the
there.
High Street.
Well, it's just behind. Thank you. Sorry, Park Lane. I do apologise. Approximately 25 metres up on the left-hand side, just opposite the Phoenix. Thank you.
Carol, I'll call in a previous licensing subcommittee. We conditioned a venue to be only open during daylight. Would that be something we could possibly condition here?
Conditions that are appropriate to this application can be added, but you must have reasons for that. I think what would be useful now is for the applicant to respond to Councillor Cook's suggestion of the Thursday and the Sunday, if they were to be brought back in hours, how that might affect their business. Because I think what you need to make sure is that if you're applying any conditions, you must have an understanding of the applicant's perspective, because there's a reason why they've applied for that. So it'd be useful to hear from them.
Thank you. If any further councillors, questions for Councillor Cook? Yeah. Before Sue, ask Sue to sit down. Okay. Thank you, Sue. Okay, and now we have questions to the applicant, and they have the opportunity to respond to anything you've heard. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd just like to point out that none of the residents of Watley Lane have put in an objection. None of the livery users of the yard, none of the people riding the horses have put in an objection or concern at all. So it's interesting that the predominant users of Watley Lane have not had any concerns that they've chosen to express. Obviously doesn't invalidate the other concerns, but it's something I think the committee should be aware of and should bear in mind, that those that are claimed to be most affected are the ones that have not objected. In terms of daylight hours, I mean, obviously that works great to our advantage in the summer. And certainly given that we have no indoor facilities, we wouldn't be working late at night in the winter anyway. I would prefer to keep it to a clock, I think it's much easier then for everybody to understand the rules, and I would be happy to take a reduction in closing hours on the Thursday and the Sunday so that we just retain the ability to be flexible on Friday and Saturday. So that would work for us. As we've already said, we don't see any need for extended hours during English Wine Week. But we'd like to keep the longer opening hours for Friday and Saturday, just to give us flexibility to run a business that's successful. And clearly we'll take every effort to ensure that there's no disruption to our neighbours from that. And I'm sure that if there is, they will let us know. And then appropriate action can be taken. Is there anything else you want me to address from Sue Cook's thing that I haven't picked up on?
The subcommittee can ask questions on anything at this point, I think, so. Do you have any further questions? I think we've because we've had a sort of an informal way of asking you questions during the previous speeches. I think we've sort of got that covered. Okay, so we will now retire to consider the application. Thank you. So if I can be should we go to the other room? I think let's go to the other room.
Yeah.
Thank you for your patience. In reaching this decision, the subcommittee, In reaching this decision, the subcommittee has carefully considered the application, the representations made, and the applicant's evidence given today. It has taken into account the Council's statement of licensing policy, the public sector equality duty, the Home Office guidance issued under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003, the duties under the Crime and Disorder Act 1998, and the rights set out in the Human Rights Act 1998. The subcommittee has concluded the application should be granted with the conditions set out, which will be set out by Lord James in a moment. Thank you.
I'm required to summarise advice that I've given to the committee. They basically, that advice basically centres on the nature of conditions, if the application to be granted, and in order to achieve a balance between the ethos of the Licensing Act, to which is permissive, i.e. to allow business to trade, but taking into account representations from the parties made and what we've heard today as to the challenges they consider the granting of a licence would present for them in terms of public nuisance and public safety. During the deliberations, I did ask the licensing manager just to step outside because I wasn't sure about the provisions that there are in relation to provision of toilets, as to whether that was something that we can condition. I've taken a view on that, and that was just to ensure that we got that right, and that was something that that whether or not we could consider, and what we've concluded is that that's a matter that's dealt with primarily by other legislation. So that will be up to the applicant to the expectation is that they will take into account national guidance with events, the toilets, provision of toilets, numbers. So these conditions aren't, I'd say, are without prejudice to the written decision that will be presented within 5 working days of the conclusion of this hearing, in that the wording just slightly varied, and we are willing to listen to any adjustments from either licensing manager or the parties as to what would become what will be better to enforce, but in terms of clarity, but the conditions themselves, the licensing subcommittee would wish to impose on the basis that they are proportionate and appropriate, obviously mindful of the impact that they conditions have on the applicants, in that they breach would be a criminal offence. So to start with, the committee has decided that the premises shall not operate for unsales to the public, that the hours that will be read out, until such time as the provision of toilets, designated parking, water and lighting, the latter in consultation with South Downs National Park, are in operation. And the committee is obviously mindful that this is a discussion with planning as well. For off sales, for the business to, this is for the purpose of the collection of orders by the public and for the business to carry out online sales, can operate between the hours of 9 AM and 2200 hours. And opening times for the public will be Friday and Saturday, 11 AM to 2200 hours. And sorry, for Saturday, yeah, I did say Friday and Saturday. Sundays to Thursdays, 11 AM to 2000 hours, and that's for on-off sales to the public. The noise management plan tendered by the applicant shall be accepted as part of the operating schedule. There shall be up to 4 non-consecutive public events a maximum of up to 4 public events per annum, which can only take place after such time as the relevant infrastructure mentioned in the above conditions is in operation.
Do you mind just reading? Yeah,
Sorry, which one?
the events.
There shall be up to 4 non-consecutive public events per annum, or there may be up to 4 public events, which may only take place after such time as the relevant infrastructure referred to in the previous condition is in operation. Yeah.
What's a public event? Does that mean that's the only time the public can come to the property? Does that mean?
That you've got an event. This isn't a private event, such as a wedding.
Oh.
So that would include a public event would include a booked event, yes. Or there wasn't an intention. No, it's other than your normal business. So it's not for taste. It's such as a festival. Yeah. Yeah, I can say that. I can say such as a festival. Yeah, no. Yes, you are. Yes. So that's why I said, you know, this is it. So such as a festival. So open day.
Well, again, you have open residents. Does that affect the wine tasting and tours?
No, I've said this is an addition to.
Useful for parties to then clarify.
Yeah.
It excludes as well, so that then anybody reading the license.
Okay, so I should say excludes. Sorry, after I said it includes, but it excludes tastings and tours.
Yeah.
That's the intention. That's why I said it's good to clarify.
This would also only apply to licensed events. So unless you're planning to sell alcohol at the yoga, it doesn't fall under the remit of everything we decide today.
We just need to be really careful with the word.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I think residents could be very.
No, that's fine. That's why I've said this is, you know, this is subject to wording, and I've said, you know, please chip in. So thank you. Happy with that, and so I'll ensure that's why I said we're going through this. It won't reflect the actual wording necessarily. So the next one, there shall be patrols when more than 30 patrons are on site on the boundaries to the noise sensitive receptors identified in the noise management plan after 1800 hours to monitor noise and take action in accordance with that plan for mitigation. It's when there are 30 patrons on site. There'll be a maximum of 50 patrons at any one time between the hours of 11 AM and 2200 hours, Friday and Saturday, and Sundays to Thursdays, 11 to 2000 hours.
Well, can I clarify two of these points?
Sorry?
The checking the boundary for sound is once an hour.
Sorry, I said hourly
Once
patrols.
an hour.
Yeah, hourly patrols, yeah.
And
After 6 PM.
And I'd stress that when you say the limit of attendance is 50 people, that's for consuming alcohol. I would say this agreement doesn't cover larger events you may have where there's no alcohol being served. So when you say that like 100 people, no alcohol, this doesn't affect us either way. Okay.
There's an expectation that in respect of bigger events that we have regard to national guidance. I think I've covered that. I think that's all. Okay, so yeah, we'll make sure that that condition is clearer. But it does affect non-tasting and normal tasting and tours.
Just
But I think we're here for licence, so regulated activity under the Licensing Act 2003, and what you have applied for is the supply of alcohol. So the conditions will only relate to when you're having events or when you're supplying alcohol. So anything that you do that doesn't require your premises licence, which is what is being decided today, doesn't come under the regime that we would enforce. So yoga without the supply of alcohol doesn't need licensing. Horse riding, yeah. So if they're having a glass afterwards, you just need to make sure that's within the times of your license. So not as I understand it, no. No. But you're right, it needs to be clearly worded so that all parties can read that condition and then it makes sense to everybody.
The actual event of, as I think Carol said, the yoga or horse riding, as long as if you do supply alcohol, as long as it's between your 11 and 2000 hours or whatever, 2200 hours, that's within the license. So that's what was the intention.
Am I permitted to make a comment if that's permitted? A clarification. At the very beginning, when Laura spoke, you referred to on sales and then you talked about off sales. Would you mind clarifying the on sales situation and what the numbers are that we're referring to? Because I know numbers were highlighted by not just the parish, but by residents. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
It was a maximum of 50 patrons at any one time between the hours of 11 and 20. Is that what you're saying? Is that what you're?
Just getting the clarification. Yeah, yes, thank you.
Between 11 and 2200 hours and 11 to 2000 hours, Sundays to Thursdays. So in terms of the business supplying alcohol for the term so the public can collect alcohol, for example, from 9 AM, but they can't consume on the premises. So if they've ordered a bottle of wine, they can collect it, but they can't. They have to wait till 11 AM. Is that what you meant?
So the magic number is 50, and when you're looking to apply for the 4 other events, that could be an individual request, and it could be maybe 200 or 250, depending if it was a wedding, for example. That's the clarity as well. Thank you.
It's a public event, not a private event. Say it's a public event. So those numbers are subject to. I think we've said that that's I think the applicant offered some yeah.
In terms of the conditions with respect to toileting, parking, lighting, how do we demonstrate that to the committee once we've completed it?
That's a good question. I presume that there would be some. You could have some. Say notify the licensing officer. Yeah, that would be that's a good point. Okay, I'll make a note of that. Thank you.
Chairman, if I may, I wonder whether in relation to the condition about the events, whether, and this is for Laura as well, in terms of wording, whether you refer to events which I'm trying to think of the wording now, but the predominant reason for the event is in itself a licensable activity under the Licensing Act 2003, because then that would exclude things like yoga, horse riding, which don't themselves have to be licensed. But that would be under the normal part of the license, yeah. So then that wouldn't be misunderstood as being an event, because that itself is not licensable for this committee. So you could still sell alcohol within the usual times of your license, but the 4 would be if it's something that's going to be bigger, that in it, you're going to have.
Yeah, I think in the application on page 24, they describe them as wine tasting events, and those are the events I would think it would be applying to. Yes, but the event is taking place for the purpose of consuming alcohol, wine tasting.
But we will have people more than 4 times a year at the vineyard to try wine.
Yes, but these are special events in addition to that.
Okay. As long as we get the words.
We've got a difficulty trying to define.
Yeah. I think we should leave it as a professional.
Yeah.
What does event mean? And we have to be sure that actually what event means is exactly what the committee referred to. So that's really useful for you to mention that.
No, this is why I do like to have clarity. If I don't want to upset Carol in particular as the licensing manager with an unenforceable condition.
Laura, have you finished? Because I can do the summing up. Okay, the parties will be formally notified of the decision in writing shortly. This notification will include details of the right to appeal against the decision to the Magistrates Court, which must be made within 21 days of the notification. Thank you very much for your attendance and for your patience. Thank you very much to everyone. Okay.